All right, so I'm Ivy. I'm an architect practicing in Hong Kong. I have 8 minutes today to just tell some stories. So the story is called Disconnect and Reconnect. What actually started the environmental movement? It all happened in one morning in late 1950s when Rachel Carson noticed there was no more birds singing in her gardens, which used to be there previously. Okay, so after an investigative journey, Sue understood that it was actually the usage of chemicals, including DDT, in agriculture that leads to the mass number of deaths in natural organisms, including the birds. And she wrote this book in the 1960s, which is reckoned as the most influential writing in the 20th century. So indeed, Rachel Carson's central message was not only about the use of chemicals, but her strongest message is actually, in nature, everything is connected. The effect to one living feature, a creature, can have tremendous implications to the whole ecologies. The book was published in 1962, coincides a time in history where technology had advanced to an extent that humans were allowed to live nearly completely separated from nature in a day-to-day existence. And then there was the invention of TV, air conditioning, subsequently mobile phones, computers. And crossing this invisible boundary, we can anticipate that there's something going to happen that's not very good. Population explosion, Jason has mentioned about, and then the unstoppable CO2 emissions. We are now quite clear that we may either continue to go along this path, which leads to end of humanity, or take another one that needs to change. Populations continues to grow, and urban conditions intensify. This is a situation not unfamiliar with us in Hong Kong. In fact, in 2008, for the first time in history, more human beings actually live in the cities than in the rural areas. And the result is a further separation between us and the natural environment. And I believe such disconnect is the origin of why human beings become more indifferent to the environment, the environmental issues we nowadays have. Here comes the term called biophilia. Biophilia describes our affinity with nature, our love to be close to nature. Okay, and this word has been quite widely used in the late 20th centuries. Coincide very much with the time that the trend of population and CO2 emissions start to increase. It starts to tell us something about, like, the more we become disconnected with nature, indeed maybe we want to go back, getting closer to it again. The biophilic movement continues to gain traction. There are seminars and competitions around the world, all related to biophilic design. And this one on the right-hand side, this is the famous highlight in New York once, an abandoned elevated rail line, now turned into a green space for various functions for people living and working around there. And I've just been coming back from Fukuoka. Unfortunately, they have this earthquake quite recently. And this is one of the buildings I find, is very inspiring. This is the Art Cross in Fukuoka, the International Hall, completed in 1995. At that time, there was a struggle for the city to preserve one of the only open city park, or to build this convention hall for the city. And eventually, the architect came up with a solution, taking not the either-or, but the both-and approach. That means, this project created a vertical city park as well as the invention hall inside it. I've been there and I find it very interesting indeed. And similarly, all architects around the world, including ourselves, we try to explore how we can re-establish that connection with nature. You know, it could be a simple way, it's not difficult. This is one of the projects, it's called Typo Market Station. When we started the project, actually the first thing we think about is how to preserve the existing vegetation as far as we possibly could. And if not possible, we should, you know, try to reprovide. So in the project, we try to look at how we can increase the greenery coverage, both horizontally and vertically, and attempt to conserve, you know, the rural setting this area once was. So the station is planned to enable view out to the rural setting while they're waiting for the next train. And they're actually a green roof and vertical greening, but they're not growing very well at that time anyways. Window openings and skylights were introduced to try to bring air and light into the space. So all about, you know, we just want to reconnect with the outside, not just inside a building. And last year we have a project, it's actually a park project. Similarly, you know, we try to provide more than the existing park could provide. So we look at the site, we see how could we actually make the park more usable. So we look around and we actually find that there is a water reservoir above the existing deck. And nobody uses it. It's been, you know, abandoned for a long time. So we find ways to persuade the clients that we should take over the reservoir and then make a connection from the existing park to this water reservoir. So through the connection, what we call green connections, that from the existing park, we could connect to use more open space. And we integrate various greening strategies, such as, here you go, such that we turn the reservoir into a sky deck, fully vegetated, and we incorporate tree canopies that walk. We try to put, well, we have to put a lift in Hong Kong because, you know, we have to do it for disabled. And we try to cover it with vegetation. And we find all the way to just make sure the environment is greener than, you know, it should be. So the landscape continuity, you know, also benefits to promoting biodiversity. And greenery also is fundamental to health and well-being to us. This is one of the competition entry. We call it a hospital in a park. The concept is to integrate medical research and community care in an urban park setting, and creating a series of public and private space which encourage interactions and fostering a sense of community. And we try to use greenery, you know, to achieve this. So you can see that the space in between the buildings actually become more important than the building themselves. The idea here is to integrate outdoor and indoor communal space at low levels through greenery and creating the park. And inside, to enhance the experience of like being in a park while you're still in a building, we introduce a lot of greeneries inside at different levels where people normally meet and greet. And you can see that we deliberately try to craft out all this voice to allow wind permeations, sound, and, you know, greeneries to get into the site. And for the upper levels, greenery is also integrated with shading and high-performance glazing on the building scheme. There's another example. This is a transport interchange project in Shenzhen. Our goal is to plan for a comprehensive system for pedestrian, bicycle transit, and vehicular movement. Again, using greenery as the media. That's why we try to introduce more sunken plazas, entrance courts, and walkable streets, elevated or at grades, all looking at opportunities to possibly introduce introduce greenery into the scheme. And this greenery also acts as shades for wayfinding elements, for landmarks, also to eliminate, urban heat island effect. And some of this area could actually become a micro farm for production of food in the community. And we move on to actually a very small project, but it is interesting to talk about it because we architects always want to do big projects, but indeed, when we look at every one of your own household, if you start to look at making it greener in everybody's home, it actually have a bigger effect than a landmark development. So in this project, actually it is a renovation project. It's actually a very old building. But the client came to us and say, we want to educate our kids. 1 minute, right, so I have to cut down the story. So in this project, we try to, in Hong Kong, most of the time developers want to put as many rooms, in your unit as possible. But on the other hand, we want to knock down all these walls as far as possible in order to create flexibility and natural ventilation and get light into the unit. It turned out to be very successful. And this is actually 2 kids' room, and one boy and one girl. And what we do is we provide all these movable partitions when during the day they could actually enjoy being together while remaining to have 2 rooms at night. And it helps to get more sunlight and natural ventilation into the living space. And even in industrial settings, like this is a data center, we also try to introduce greeneries. All this green room, which started as we want to provide this amenity for the staff, but they all turn out to be some urban farms, which they start to grow food. And if we cannot put greenery, real greenery inside the interiors, we will use artificial lawn. Of course, it's a bit cheating, but it still gives people the connections to nature. So all in all, we believe that to connect back to nature is a means to reconnect people, to their life. While we are able to get in touch more with nature, we may understand it more and be more aware of it and try to protect it. And only because, these connections really need to be re-established, and we could remain some hope for the future to be better. Thank you very much.